Hello everyone, and welcome back to USTA Florida's Here to Serve podcast. My name is Laura Bowen. I'm the Executive Director at USTA Florida, and today we have a very special celebration. This marks our 100th episode of the Here to Serve podcast. For those of you who've been tuning in for all 100 episodes, you know that we started this podcast during COVID as a way for us to communicate with you the work we were doing to get players back on the tennis courts. In the 3 years since, we've covered every topic imaginable, from virtual reality in tennis to challenges facing our historically black colleges and universities. Today, I want to thank everyone who's been involved in the podcast. This wonderful team of people behind me has produced this podcast consecutively for all 100 episodes. For those of you who have been on the podcast, thank you for sharing your time and expertise with us. And for those of you who have watched, whether it's one episode or all 100, thank you for spending your time with us. And to B.A. Grubbs, who's tuned into every episode of the 100, thank you for being a super fan. So today we're bringing you a very special episode featuring Tom and Mardy Fish. They'll talk about their tennis journey in one of our very special locations here in Florida. So sit back, relax, and tune in to this very special episode of the pod. We'll be back this fall with more episodes, topics, and dates. So check USTAFlorida.com/here to serve for more information. And on behalf of our staff, our volunteers, our providers, and our fans, we are
Here to Serve!
So thank you, Tom and Mardy, for joining us on our Here to Serve podcast, our 100th episode. It's really a pleasure to have you with me here today. So Tom, I'd love to start with your tennis story. How did you first get introduced to tennis, and what made you want to become a teaching professional?
I played all sports when I was, a young kid, but baseball, basketball, football, those sorts of sports. And then I was playing baseball, and the baseball coach didn't think as highly of my abilities as I thought. He didn't think I was as good as I thought I was good. So anyhow, and there's no way to go one-on-one with, like the other shortstop or whatever. So right next to the baseball courts or the baseball field or the tennis courts. And I looked over there and these guys are playing, one against one, and thinking, at least that looked attractive to me. At least if I think I'm better than somebody, I can go beat them. And, if they beat me, okay, they're better than me. So I liked the kind of one-on-one thought of that. So I was 13 years old. I went out for the junior high school tennis team. And, I played the worst guy and then the next worst guy and the next worst guy. And I just kind of worked my way up on the team and, just fell in love with the sport. I was consumed by it. I would go home and swing in front of the mirror and in my bedroom. And, I just really, really enjoyed it and played a ton of tennis, and as much as I could, because I was in Minnesota at the time, so there wasn't much winter tennis, but I was a big organizer. I would, call my buddies up and go, do you want to hit at 9 o'clock tomorrow? And then somebody at 1 o'clock tomorrow. And so I worked hard on, I didn't work. I mean, it was just fun for me. I just wanted to keep playing, and nobody was calling me. So I just thought I'd call other people and get them out there. So I had a late start, but like I said, I love the sport. And then, I started playing USTA tournaments. I played my first tournament. I think Andre maybe saw me because I was wearing jean shorts, because those are the only shorts I had. I was this first jean short guy out there. And then I remember I got some white shorts finally, and I was so excited to wear them. This is what a dork I am. I forgot to take the tag off, like the shorts tag on the size and all that kind of stuff. But anyhow, I really love the competition. I wasn't any kind of phenom. I just, loved the sport and kept enjoying the competition. Um, and then as far as teaching went, I got like a rec job in the summer at the public courts and just, started doing that. And then through college, I kind of did the same thing. And then I got a job at a club and just kind of worked my way up in the club side of the profession. And, I was in college. I was thinking I was going to be a dentist, and but I wanted to be a dentist I wanted to be able to take. I knew some other dentists, and they would take Wednesday afternoon off and Fridays off, so they could play tennis. I'm thinking, yeah, that's what I want to be as a dentist, so I can take that time off. And then I just started enjoying the teaching part so much that I skipped the dentist part, which was a good decision. Tennis has been very, very good to me for sure. It's a great sport. It's been a great livelihood for me, and I've had amazing life thanks to tennis.
Well, I have two main takeaways from that. One is I would like to thank the baseball coach who
Right.
ended up moving you on to tennis because that's good for us. And then secondly, I now have an idea for a special event at one of our facilities, which would be the jean short night, where we all bring out our jorts and we relive the wonderful time frame and era where we used to wear jean shorts were athletic attire back in that day. Many a times I saw my dad play softball in jean shorts. That's a thing.
Yeah, those are cool. With frays, they got to be fraying.
That's true. You have to cut them yourself. That's how that works. Not any of this buy them new stuff. Well, Marty, what was it like for you growing up with your dad as your coach? And what are some of your favorite memories playing with your family growing up?
It was great. I mean, I had a built-in coach at home. I didn't have to pay, we didn't have to pay for him, which was nice. My dad didn't have to pay for himself, lessons. So it was nice. It was nice to get an early start, I mean, like people talk a lot about golf and tennis and these sports that are very difficult to pick up at a later age. And so, hand-eye coordination was something that I picked up pretty early. I think probably from my mom. She tied a string around the ceiling of our basement in Minnesota, where I was born and where my dad grew up, and with sort of a ball attached to the end and a baseball bat and a tennis racket and a golf club kind of laying there, and I'd pick up one and swing at it or whatever, and sort of developed hand-eye coordination as early as I could stand, and really took to those three sports probably more than any other, kind of into 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old kind of thing. We dabbled in the football and maybe tried soccer. I don't know, dad, for half a season maybe, and just wasn't for me. And I enjoyed the individual sports a little bit more than the team sports, just because it was all on you, and it was you got all the glory and all the blame. And so I really sort of enjoyed that part of golf and tennis. So it was obviously, as I got older, and understood how to, that I could talk back to my dad from time to time, was sort of the time when we figured that, there's obviously not a ton of player parent coaching arrangements anymore. And there's probably a reason for that. And my dad and I have a really close relationship. We talk most every day. And And the only time we really got in arguments was around tennis and around, like, he wanted me to play more, or I didn't want to practice quite as much, or I wanted to do this and he wanted me to do that. And, life at home was starting to get a little more contentious when we talk about tennis or sport or things like that. And, and I was 12, 13, 14, probably 14 years old, at my oldest, to where, and it was obviously a credit to him, to where he's like, okay, I need to take a step back here. And he needs to go somewhere that can, kind of accelerate his skill set a little bit more, maybe have more players to play with. Vero Beach, where I grew up, wasn't a place where we had a ton of players. Robert Volchik was kind of the one guy that stood out. Ironically, we played each other when it was my first year 18s at the US Open. We played each other in the first round. We're both from Vero Beach, and we could have easily played at Riverside Park, where we grew up playing a ton. So it was an interesting, I think people understand now, or parents and parent-child understands how difficult it is to sort of maintain a really close relationship with your kids when they're competing or trying to compete, as opposed to maybe just doing it for fun or whatever. And I wasn't doing it for fun at that point. Obviously it was fun, but I was sort of trying to figure out how good I could get. And that was sort of unknown. And so credit to my dad for sort of understanding that I may need a different place here, a different voice, and to kind of accelerate my career a little bit more. So that was when I went off to Saddlebrook, and I don't know, kind of the rest is history in terms of how the coaching arrangements went, how our relationship changed again, and so on.
Yeah. I just felt like, I had two jobs there for a while. I had coaching Marty, and I was dad. Mm-hmm. And thinking about it at the time, I thought dad is a much more important job than being coach.
That's such an important statement. We see so many kids come through the Florida system. Obviously, Marty, your documentary talked about that, right? And the pressure and the role of the parent in that dynamic is so incredibly important. So I appreciate you sharing that, Tom, because sometimes I do think the parents don't always take that step back and say, hey, it's more important for me to be the parent right now, or to be dad or mom, and not coach, and not.
It's incredibly rare. It's incredibly rare for a parent to step away, or to take a back seat and have a hands-on approach and then take a back seat. It's very rare, and the ones that don't usually end up, you don't know, you never hear it from them, because they've either quit, or they've hated the sport, or hated their parents, and chose not to play anyways.
So true. We see it a lot. We just had our state championships, and it's sometimes very sad, but to see out there what happens. And that's why these messages are kind of important, and both of you sharing is really important, because I think it resonates differently, and it resonates a lot with our audience. So thank you. Marty, you touched on Vero Beach, and I know Riverside Park is really a special place for both of you. Tom, how did you decide to move to Vero Beach? And you've lived there now for quite some time. What do you think makes it such a special place for tennis?
Well, I owe that all to Marty's mother, my wife, Sally, because we were living in Minnesota. I really hadn't traveled that much in my life outside of Minnesota. And I didn't know there was like another world, like in Florida, where you could play tennis and golf and play outside all year round. And so I'd be watching something, like a golf thing on TV. And so I'd go, you could be doing that right now in the middle, we're in the middle of 2 feet of snow or something. And because I was a happy little Minnesotan, I didn't know any better. This is what you do. You just deal with it. And, but anyhow, so we did, I was lucky enough to get a job actually in Vero Beach at Johns Island. And that was an important job because I learned a lot about country clubs from a guy named Mike Raleigh, who was amazing pro and mentor for me. And he helped me, advance my career. And I've been very, very lucky to get some very, very good jobs. And then what was the second part? I'm sorry.
Actually, that's a really good point, because the public park system and the country club side, they're very different, very, very different environments when you're working in those. And you mentioned you sort of were on the park side, and there's a lot to learn on both. We see that when a professional goes from one to the other, it's definitely a difference.
Right. So I had a great training from Mike Raleigh, and because Vero is such a great tennis town, I moved around a little bit from club to club, and then I ended up where I am now. I've been there for 32 years, the Windsor Club. So, and they've been there. It's a great club, great membership, and they love tennis. But the town of Vero Beach is a great tennis town too. There's some very vibrant tennis clubs, Sea Oaks, Johns Island, the Moorings, the Boulevard, Orchid Island Golf and Beach Club. I mean, it's all the Vero Beach Tennis Center, where we just held our Mardy Fish Children's Foundation Futures Tournament. That's another great club. And, they have exhibitions that we do throughout town where we might have 400 people watching us, semi-scrubs play some doubles. But it's a lot of fun, and it's exciting to be around so much love for tennis.
Yeah, that was what hit me about going down there when we first met, is there was such an energy around tennis. And I do think it's one of our finest tennis towns in the state of Florida, really, in a lot of ways. And there really is truly a love of the game. I mean, people will come out and watch and play, and it's really wonderful. And the city supports it as well, which I think is also special. Not all municipalities are, as supportive of tennis as the city of Vero Beach is, and they've been wonderful to us.
Yeah, our futures tournament, we call it the best little professional tennis tournament in the world, because we charge for the qualifiers. We charge for to watch the qualifying matches, and that was even before, now the US Open does it, Wimbledon does it. I don't know about the French and the Australian, but we did it before they did, because we had so many people that wanted to come support the tennis as well as support the Mardy Fish Children's Foundation. So
a good cause and a great town. So, success all the way around.
The French definitely charges for qualies.
Do they? Yeah.
They charge when you get on the grounds, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've only been there once.
They charge for practice.
Oh, do they?
I don't know if they do, but they would if they could, I bet.
I like the French, so I will pay for qualies or whatever they do. I really enjoyed going to the French Open personally, and appreciate that slam because of the Perrier and the Lavazza, which are my two favorite beverages of choice. So.
Well, that makes one of us then. Except for the clay was the problem for me. If it was a different surface, then I would have liked that tournament more, probably.
Has your perspective on tennis changed in that regard, Mardy? This is sort of a random question, but when you watch it now, do you think differently about it, or are your favorites from when you were playing still your favorite tournaments now?
As far as like spectating post Davis Cup, post like everything.
Yeah.
I haven't watched a whole lot then, if that's the case. I keep an eye on Americans. As far as like, I don't know, I would assume Hala and Queens Club are going on right now. Just because I know that the French ended fairly recently and Wimbledon's coming up just in terms of in the calendar. So I haven't watched a whole lot, to be honest. Like I watched some Djokovic and Alcaraz. That'll get me moving to the TV. And I heard that Francis Tiafoe has made the top 10 in the world now. Somebody sent me that because the last time we had two Americans in there, I was one of them. So that was the reason why I saw that, I think. But yeah, I mean, look, during Davis Cup times, I watched everything. I kept an eye on everything. Literally every match, player would get a text from me, win or lose, something like that. Now it's far less. Now I don't have the time. If the tour is in Europe, that's even tougher. So it's much harder for me to sort of watch now. But I enjoyed the French sort of the end of the tournament and stuff. I'll watch like the big matches now more than but I think I'm more of a passive tennis fan as opposed to like what used to be either watching opponents or scouting players or keeping an eye on possible Davis Cup players. Now it's a little bit different.
And you will watch Wimbledon though?
I will most likely watch. Yeah, I mean Wimbledon is during a really important week for our family, which is the golf tournament in Lake Tahoe that everyone comes out for. Trying to get my sister's side to come out, but apart from them, usually my parents come and my wife's family comes, our kids obviously, and then my best friend from Vero, Jake Owen, comes with all his crew as well. So it's almost like a homecoming a little bit. So I can imagine not watching too much tennis during that during that week. That's I think the second week of Wimbledon. So yeah, I'll probably keep an eye on usually try and keep an eye on Isner, some of the younger studs that we have as well. Isner, just from he's kind of the only one left over from my era, or that I've played. I haven't played any of these guys. Most of them obviously Djokovic's and those, but I mean he's 37 now. So anyone 30 or under, I hadn't played. So I don't know much about them.
We like watching you play golf too. So my dad's
Everyone will be
a
tuned
golf
in.
fan.
Everyone will be tuned into the American Century instead of Wimbledon, anyways. Yeah.
My dad will be, I'll tell you that. There's not a golf event he doesn't watch. He loves it. And so I'm trying to get him to watch more tennis too. So he'll be switching back and forth, I'm sure.
Nice.
Well, Marty, while you're talking, I wanted to sort of hear your perspective on, you know, as a junior player or even as just a little kid, what was it like playing at Riverside Park and, even locally there? Did having that experience at a public park with your dad help you in any way as you sort of went on your tennis journey?
Oh, I mean, it helped a ton. I mean, it gave us obviously a place to practice, gave us a place to practice that was close to home, being across the street, literally across the street. It also gave me a place to kind of exercise as well. They've got a great sort of mile track there. I guess it's a mile track that you could kind of run, and I would cheat from time to time and cut corners and stuff like that. But I ran that track a lot, walked it a
Your
lot,
dad
and then
laughed
obviously,
at that when you said you would cheat the track. Your
yeah,
dad immediately laughed like he knew
yeah,
that's what you were
as if he didn't know that I was doing that. Now that I have a son, it's pretty easy to know if he's brushed his teeth or not. So he probably knew that anyways. But no, look, and they had a great like backboard wall there with the line for the net, and just kind of hit off of that. I remember hitting off my garage door, the garage door, all the same stuff that, that kids use, except we had it across the street and it was so accessible. They were so friendly to, let us use the courts, let us use even the back courts that were closer to our house than the front courts were. And I have tons of memories from hitting with friends, and mentioned Robert's name earlier. Just playing a ton with him there. Again, Jake's brother Jared was a good tennis player as well, and so we had probably 4 or 5 kids that were probably statewide ranked, I'd say, maybe 3 or 4 that you could kind of hit with and stuff, and that's where the small town of Vero came pretty apparent that if I were going to further this thing, I needed to maybe go somewhere where there were more kids there to hit with and play with. But that being said, a small town like Vero, and to be able to have that park there with all the courts, to have that wall there with, racquetball courts there too. And just a sort of a perfect setup for parent and child, right? Like I could go across and they could probably watch from their kitchen for the most part. And, I could just walk across and, was there easily. So, it was safe and, a great place to practice. So we're super thankful for that place, because it was really where I have my first tennis memories from, Riverside Park, and having those battles with Robert and having those battles with my dad until he couldn't beat me anymore. And, happened around, I asked you that the other day. What was it, like 13?
Yeah. We had a good match for maybe 6 months. I used to, beat you easily when you're young. And then maybe 6 months we were somewhat competitive.
How old was I at that point? How old was I?
14.
Okay.
So
it was probably 12.
Good. I remember one program though that I felt was significant in your development. It was a USTA program. It was a team thing, and it was like 9, 10 you were playing, and it was kind of a introductory thing. So there were a bunch of different levels on it, and you guys, you won the area one, and then you went to the state. And
like a junior team tennis program?
It was a junior team tennis thing, and it made, it was, tennis is tough because you are all by yourself. And I kind of felt like Marty maybe fell in love with the sport a little bit more than, because, you're not kind of the lone ranger out there hitting with your dad all by yourself all the time. You had, his buddies out there playing with them and cheering for each other, and they can goof off together. And I thought that was a really, really nice program to have. I don't know if they do that anymore.
They do. Florida's where that program started, so it's a national program. But years ago, I think Bobby Curtis and the people who really shaped Florida tennis created that program, and we still do it. We'll bring it to Riverside. In fact, Pierce Kelly stopped by the other day to talk to us about doing some team tennis there. So we certainly will do that. And that kind of is another question I had for you all is, Florida is really such a unique place in tennis. There's a lot of tennis that happens here at a lot of different levels, and we're known for being one of the best places for tennis. So in terms of that, what, in your opinions, makes Florida so unique? Tom, you talked about moving to Vero and it being a great tennis town. Marty, you talked about having to leave Riverside and go out to, Saddlebrook and finding more competition. What do you think makes Florida so special in terms of the opportunities to play here?
I'll go. Yeah, maybe the obviously what jumps out initially is the year-round aspect. You can play it every day. I think, that the weather has a lot to do with it. You see most of the best sort of sections in the country, or Florida, I would assume is, I don't know about far and away, but is certainly one of the best sections in the country. To come out of. Texas and California would be kind of the two others I would assume would be the top three. And just competition, weather. California was another place that was that had a lot of great players come out of there. But there were always, there was always the one-offs too. There was, good players from Maryland and a good player from Michigan and a good, but the bulk of them came from Florida, Texas, and California.
Yeah, I feel like Florida's like an all-star state, or all-star beyond. I mean, the best junior players, if they're up north, will try to get to Florida to train and compete, and then even internationally, we get some great players from all over the world. And my thinking is, it's more than great coaching; it's the competition that makes the player. I mean, that's why it feels like, to me, usually they come up in tennis players come up in groups rather than individuals. There's like one-offs, like Marty says, but there's a, like the Sampras's, Agassi's, Chang, David Wheaton, those guys kind of were one group, and then it was nothing for a while, and then Marty and Andy and James Blake and Robbie and some other killers. There was another group that, they were battling against each other and they made each other better. I think it's really the competition that makes the player.
Yeah, I think that's something we do have a lot of here. You mentioned the international players. So many train here. So many international players train here. And then, we have over 1,000 tournaments a year now, which is kind of mind-blowing in and of itself, that the ecosystem can support that. And then we think we'll have even more next year. It just,
wow,
it's kind of mind-blowing how many opportunities to play there really are here. And then how much the competition, now that there's a nationalized system, you get competitors other times a year that come from other states to play here. So it's really fascinating to watch. As somebody who didn't grow up playing tennis, it really is kind of remarkable what happens in this state every year. Marty, I wanted to shift just a little bit, if that's okay. I know, you've talked a lot about mental health and mental challenges, and you've talked on a lot of podcasts about that before. And you've also talked about the great opportunities that tennis has provided to you as the greatest, sport. But you also said it's the toughest sport in the world. Can you talk maybe a little bit about how we can do a better job as, maybe parents, coaches, and even our organization preparing these younger players for the mental challenges of tennis from that younger age?
That is a great question. I mean, the mental and physical challenges of tennis alone, I'm not sure how you can help those, or make them easier on yourself. There's only a few things that you can control as a tennis player. You can control your attitude, you can control your effort, and you can control your fitness. You can't really control how you play. You can't control the conditions, can't control the court, the balls, or anything like that. You can't control how your opponent plays. So there's a lot of variables that are uncontrollable. However, there are three really important ones that you can. That was something that I learned later in my career, was how to truly become a dedicated professional, right? Like professional tennis player, and how to truly get everything out of either my God-given abilities, talent wise, or just, physically, how to sort of navigate the world of professional sport. Look, the reason why I say that it is the most challenging sport in the world, I think, is because a few things. Travel, for one. it's a pretty lonely game in terms of travel. Not everybody can afford a coach and a trainer, have your wife or significant other travel with you. It's a lot of people. It's, right there, that's 4 people everywhere you go. It's really expensive. We don't just play, we speak of golf, for instance, like we don't just play in the States. I know they have British Open coming up, but for the most part, they're playing in the US. They have a West Coast swing and an East Coast swing. I think in 2012, when I had a lot of my mental health issues come up, I had gone, I should probably do the math on the miles that I traveled before April, but it was Perth, Australia, Melbourne, Australia, back to the US, over to Switzerland for Davis Cup, back to LA, back over for Marseille and Dubai, back over to LA, Indian Wells, Miami before March ended. So it's a lot of travel globally. It's a very expensive sport professionally as well at the highest level. You can make a lot of money, but it's very very challenging financially as well for every player. And then that's not even including any of the actual tennis of being good at your craft, right? And like, oh, by the way, you have to be really good at tennis too. It does not matter how good you are if you aren't as physically fit as you could possibly be. If you aren't, you're just not going to get everything out of your abilities. So that's a lot of things that come into play. However, the one-on-one, non-contact, gladiator-ish sport that it is so the feeling of winning and the feeling of triumph in like sort of the arena of playing and playing in front of thousands or tens of thousands of people if you're at the US Open, let's say at Arthur Ashe Stadium, or if you're if you count all the people that are watching on TV, right? It is there is nothing like the feeling of walking off the court winning a match, because it's really hard to win. It's really easy to lose, and it's really easy to lose to these players that are just dedicate their lives. Obviously, everyone dedicates their life to it. It's their job, and it almost turns into it does turn into a job as opposed to that really fun sport that my dad talked about that he learned to play a little bit later on than I did in his life, and wanting to compete and wanting to just call people and play. It was more of, it turns into a real job, and the love of the game starts falling out, and it's more of like, how do I prepare myself as a professional? How do I market myself as an athlete? How do I maximize my potential in terms of on the court and off the court? You start becoming a business as opposed to just literally walking across the street at Riverside Park and playing tennis. And so you can sort of fall into that trap of it truly being a really hard job. And I think, if you look at a lot of Djokovic is maybe the outlier of that, but you look at someone like Roger, who played for Federer, who played for such a long time, like he truly enjoyed all of that stuff. I think you really have to enjoy all that stuff to play for a long time throughout your career. I retired when I was 32 years old. And what people would ask me, why'd you retire so early? I started playing tournaments when I was 6. And 26 years of doing something at a really high level, or I'm sorry, doing the same thing for that long is actually pretty rare. Like my dad being a teaching pro for over 30 years at the same club is actually really rare. Usually people will have a career in something for 10, 15, 20 years and then maybe switch or maybe do something else or do something different or whatever. And so you got to remember that I had been playing tournaments for 26 years. And so, so for me, it was time to stop and do something different. And I was ready for that challenge and excited for that challenge.
Do you think there's something different that the kids have these days? I mean, when you look at, is there more pressure on kids? I mean, even in that space of between 5 and 15, when they're supposed to be enjoying, do you feel like parents and others are putting even more pressure on them and creating more like a job at a younger age versus enjoying it? Or do you see it very similar to how you experienced it?
I think the ones that are the ones that aren't quite as successful, or give up early, they are being pushed too hard. It was becoming pretty close to apparent for me when, right before I went to Saddlebrook, that it was the love of the game was maybe falling out of I was falling out of love for the game because it was a really lonely game, and it was something that that I wasn't really I wasn't really ready to take that next step, like really truly, not until I was 14 years old and went to Saddlebrook was I it was really apparent that, like, okay, I want to do this. I want to try this. From 5 to 15 years old. I mean, look, I don't remember. I remember a lot of matches. I mean, because it's our job. It's kind of what I did. It was kind of the only thing I did was play tennis. But there aren't too many matches that I remember before 12 years old that really stick out to me at 41 right now. So by saying that, I mean, there wasn't really that many really truly important matches that I played, as much as just I played and I competed. And I think people nowadays just get so into, and I see it now because I have a 9-year-old who's really sporty and loves baseball and golf and all kinds of stuff. And I see these parents just kind of living through their children and pushing their children at such a young age to, especially like in golf. My son plays some competitive golf, and there's kids out there that can't play without their parents. And that those are the kids that I sort of see and go, oh yeah, I remember that parent. I remember those parents over in Lakeland, Florida, or something like that, or San Lando Park in Altamont Springs. Is that right? Altamont Springs. I mean, there were a dime a dozen, that were just pushing their kids and pushing and pissed when they lost and upset at them. And we heard lots of stories. They put them in hot water when they lose, and hot water. Yeah, that's rough. We put them in cold water. He said help their body a little bit. But they, I mean, I think it's not the kids. I mean, the kids are only going to do as much as they kind of want to do, right? And you get these parents that are just so overwhelming their children, or so, just their kids have no chance to enjoy what they're doing at a young age, or even use it as a tool for an education. Not everybody's going to be a professional athlete or a professional tennis player, but you can use tennis as a tool for an education. You can use it for an active lifestyle. You can use it for, an incredibly high level mental toughness. There's lots of problem solving. There's tons of great things that come from tennis. And adding a parent or parents to it that are pushing you at 10 years old to this is the match of your life kind of stuff, is really bad for the kids. It's bad for the game, for the sport. But we see it in all sports. I mean, it's not just tennis, but tennis really does bring out the crazy tennis dad, in most of them. And I was really lucky with that. Having a father who and a family really, but a dad who was going to the US Open as a fan before I was born. And then, fast forward 25, 30 years, and I get to play at the US Open on his birthday, on Arthur Ashe Stadium. And like, those are the ones that I remember sort of the most. The ones that all the people that got you there were able to watch and be able to take in. And those are some of the matches that I mean, honestly, the Monfils match in the US Open 4th round in 2008 was like one of my most cherished wins of my life, because it was on my dad's birthday, Arthur Ashe Stadium, 4th round of the US Open, which I had never been to. And it was an underwhelming match. It was like, straight sets and pretty quick or whatever. It was a great match for us, but it wasn't really one to sort of, I don't know, remember as much as I do because of all the extra stuff that goes with it. And and those are the ones that really get you because you just understand that there's just so much. And now being a father and like understanding like truly what goes into parenting a kid and trying to keep them alive in the first 5 years or so until you're showing some promise. And I don't know, I'm not there yet, but I can start to understand what goes into to raising a kid, and then to raising a kid that loves sports or that is showing promise in a sport, that it would be pretty exciting. So those are some of the things that really jump out at me.
Interesting what the perspective is. You mentioned the parents that are so involved growing up. I mean, I'm not a super athlete, but I played a lot of sports and my parents were never there. They were never there. They never showed up. And it was actually the most joyful times that I had, where I was free to play without judgment or anybody watching me. And when I come to our events and I see little kids, and I'm talking under the age of 10, and there's a lot, like the parents are hovering and telling them what to do and things. And I think, oh, what freedom I had as a kid growing up. And that's magical experience that really is that freedom of play and independence. Like you said, learning that life skill. My parents not here, I have to kind of figure out things on my own. And teaching you for life has it changed your parenting style? Do you think,
it has. I mean, I don't know if it, I try and, I mean, gosh, if I was as good of a parent as my dad was, then that would be great. But it's what it's done is it's changed my thought process in terms of what they did when I was a kid, and what you sacrifice to do anything for your kids. And I have a son and a daughter, older son, younger daughter, and so did my parents. They were the same, we were older son, younger daughter, and there were a lot of tournaments, I guess, where we all went because Meredith played too, and she was a real good junior player as well, and collegiate player. So it sort of changes my like understanding of like, I know that they did a lot, but I didn't know they did this much, and like, your weekends are gone, you're working during the week, and then your weekends are gone as well. And so it doesn't really give you a lot of time for yourself, which is okay, because they're your kids and you do anything for them. And so, it's really opened my eyes in that regard.
I mean, the way I looked at it was, I thought this tennis tournament thing was like the greatest, I shouldn't say scam, but it's like my kids, they want to hang out with me when they're 13, 14 years old, 15 years old, whatever. because they want to go to a tournament and they got to be nice to me, or I might not take them to a tournament. So, and I just got to spend so much time with Marty and Meredith, all the way basically till they were in high school, or done with high school, just because, they wanted to play in tournaments, and I wanted to watch them. So to me, there's nothing more fun than watching your kids play a sport, or even now I get to watch my grandkids play sports. It's a thrill. And that stuff Marty did at the US Open on my birthday is I couldn't have dreamt of that for sure. I mean, that was beyond dreamy.
Because I was a good golfer too growing up, and so I could, so I still needle him at times because I'd probably still be, if I were as good in golf as I was in tennis, I'd still be playing golf, and so I'd still be I could still possibly be competing at that. So that's his fault.
That is my fault. I take the blame. I'll take the bullet. You were pretty good at tennis too, but yeah, you would still be golfing and probably into your 60s competitively. But
it's like, it wasn't Althea Gibson a champion in tennis and golf as well? So there's like,
wasn't she? She was a track and field, was she not, in tennis?
She was a lot of.
She was a lot of things. She was a lot better athlete than I was, that's for sure.
Incredible, but you certainly are incredible to do two sports as well as you do. And golf is, I enjoy golf as well. I tell you, when you get to a certain age, you got golf and tennis as your options, and I do enjoy them both quite a bit. And I find golf to be just a different type of challenge than tennis. And it is sort of that you'll never perfect it sort of sport that you just chase forever and ever and ever. And it can be frustrating. And then you have a really good shot and you're like, okay, that's good. I'll be back tomorrow.
Exactly. You got to forget all the bad shots. Remember that one good shot and you're good.
Yeah, golf is the sports equivalent to a drug, where you're on such a high if you make a birdie and such a low if you're not, if you make a bogey or a double bogey. It is a frustrating game.
It is, but we keep doing it. So
yes, we do. We keep coming back. You can never be too good of a putter.
That is a fact. And that is a fact. That is where, and in fact, every time I go over to my dad's house, I feel like we're watching a playoff on a golf tournament that comes down to like an 18-foot putt. And I'm like, how did that happen? Well, let's talk a little bit about the Mardy Fish Children's Foundation. This foundation does a great job of serving children in the Vero Beach community. It's wonderful that you all dedicate time and energy to this. And I wanted to see if you could take just a little bit of time to share with our audience why you decided to start the foundation and what it means to you both. And so, Marty or Tom,
let Marty start with why, because it was his.
Well, I wanted to give back to the community that gave so much to me, that I grew up in, and that's one of the reasons why A, we started it in Vero, and B, why we've kept it there. I don't live there anymore. In fact, I haven't lived there for a long time. I moved to Tampa, obviously, when I turned pro, when I was 15 and when I was 17 or 18, and now live in Los Angeles. And it still sort of feels like home, right? Like, even though, I've probably spent more time now in Los Angeles than I have in Vero, maybe not. Well, maybe actually probably 10, 12 years in Vero Beach, and now a long time out here as well, and a long time in Tampa. But it just feels like, it's obviously where I grew up, where my memories are of, going to school, elementary school, middle school, and high school, or a little bit of high school. And so that was important as to where it is. Why was easy as well, in that if I could play tennis to be able to give back to my community, that was like one of the easiest things I could possibly do. It's the only thing that I do, or it was the thing I did best at, or the thing I did best. And if people were willing to pay money or to donate to our foundation to watch me play tennis, that was the easiest thing for us to do. And so that's kind of why. And then I think we sort of added on to a charity, and then eventually sort of took it over and changed it and made it, kind of made it our own. But I do it from afar. My dad, who can talk more about it and more eloquently about it, he does work on it on a daily basis, and does anywhere from, I don't know how many hours a week you probably work on it, but it's a lot. And obviously it's a charity, so you don't get paid for it, but he's put in more work than anyone on it has. And it's almost turned into like a family charity, as opposed to just, I know it's got my name on it, but it should be the sort of the Fish Family Foundation in a way, because my mom and my dad put in so much effort when I'm so far away from being able to do that.
Well, I mean, it helps to use your name, Marty, for sure. That gets us a lot more attention, and donations, that what we're trying to use to help the kids. But I'll just give you, Laura, just kind of the background of the foundation once we got it going. In 2006, we started, and we did start with Jake Owen, Marty's buddy, and it was Marty. I don't know I think it was Marty and Jake's foundation, but anyhow, we broke apart. But our first programs were at Pelican Island Elementary, and we did a tennis program and we did a guitar program. So we started with that.
It wasn't it the Marty's Tennis and Jake's Music Fest? That was what it was called initially. Yeah. Kind of a wordy title, but it worked.
Well, it was a really good party.
Sounds very fun. I like
great music. Great music at our party.
It was. I mean, people are still upset that we ended that, but we just, we spent a lot of money on the party, and we weren't, most of the money, it was like half going to the party and half going to the kids. We wanted to do better than that, so we don't raise money that way anymore. But it was fun, and people are still upset. But we've evolved. This is our 17th year, and we've grown to the point where we've raised like a total of over $5 million over the years. But now we're, really raising a lot of money. We have amazing board now, that we have a lady named Lynn Southerly, who's our foundation director. She works hard for no money. She doesn't get paid a cent, and she works so hard. And then we have a fantastic board now of people that are way smarter than me and have way more experience than I have in foundations. And so what we do is we raise money to help the children of Indian River County, and we're focused mainly on the kids that need it the most, but we help all kids, because all kids do need help. But we started with tennis, and then we realized we can't attract all kids just with tennis. So we added other programs that, more kids would be involved, would be excited about, like basketball and track. And we have big cheerleading programs, and we have a gardening club. It's all, the whole thing is based on Marty's 6 healthy habits, which, so it's part of fitness and exercise foundation, but it's also a health foundation. So each program, whether it's a sporting program or, well, they're all pretty much sporting programs. Even the gardening club is not sporting, but it is a health program. But they all are taught Marty's 6 Healthy Habits. We have a huge affiliation with the Boys and Girls Club and with the homeless. Like we have a big program that I'm very proud of. We teach the homeless swimming, because swimming is a really big part of Florida. Like a lot of like birthday parties, for example, the kids have a pool party, and if you don't know how to swim, you just sit kind of on the side, and you don't feel a part of it. And also, swimming is can save your life someday if you can swim. But anyhow, it feels like every year we are helping more kids, we're raising more money, we're helping, to make a difference in a lot of kids' lives that really would be struggling a lot more without our help. So we're very proud of that, and we're very proud of Marty helping us.
Well, Tom, that leads me to my next question, which is, now that we're at Riverside Park, we're very excited to work with you to maybe grow the programs that you have. So what can we do to help provide more programs to help the children in the foundation?
Well, that will be a huge help for us for sure, because definitely tennis is our number one focus, and just to have kind of a home that we'll have at Riverside will be fantastic. And using your staff will be great. And, I'd love to do that summer team program, get that going again. Like I said, I believe in competition. I'd like to, get the kids competing. That's one thing that Tim does is, they hit some balls, but then they start playing right away. I think that's a great way to learn how to play tennis. You get a couple, swing like this and swing like that, and then go play. I think so many kids, take so many lessons that they don't, that's a good way to get sick of something, I think.
Even as an adult, I'm going to tell you that. Like, I just want to go play.
I want to play. It's kind of like playing, practicing basketball for hours and hours and never playing the game. So yeah, I'm so excited that you're there. I'm so grateful for your help, Laura. You busted through their city council and got it going. You were a star, and I'm really excited to see what will happen.
Well, I'm happy to come down and volunteer anytime. For you, for the programs down there, the community's just it's been wonderful, and it's been a joy to work with you and Lynn and Tim and the whole team. And I really can't wait for you to come down, Marty, and see the programs. I think it'll be just a new day for Riverside and a new day for Vero. And, hopefully the next Mardy Fish will come from across the street to hit a few tennis balls and hit against the wall. And 20 years from now, we'll be seeing that in the US Open in the next generation, which would make me super happy.
That would be cool. That would be awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for your help.
Pleasure. So Marty, my last question is really for you. When you think of your entire tennis journey, what do you see as your greatest legacy, and what's the greatest lesson you would share with any of the youth out there who are picking up a tennis racket today?
I'll start with the first, which my greatest legacy. I mean, look, I hope that when it's all said and done, I can have multiple legacies of tennis, of education, of mental health, and the foundation, the charity foundation, the Children's Foundation. So I think if you go to people, let's say you go to people in Vero Beach and they say, oh, well, that's that guy with that charity foundation. And then if you go to a broader, maybe say a Netflix or something like that, and you see my documentary there, oh, that's that guy who had that mental health issue and came out better for it, or more educated, or I got more educated on that, or I found a success story through him and was able to to get a handle on my mental health issues. And then lastly, and like probably least important, is some of the things I did on the court, which which we have a lot of memories from. Obviously, I have a lot of memories from. My dad didn't miss many tournaments. He didn't miss any Davis Cups. Either Bogota was the only one he missed, and that was the one I told him not to go to, just because we were unaware of the surroundings, and it was a relegation tie. It turned out to be the one that I probably would want him at the most, which was the one that the only one where I won all 3 points in a tie for our team. And so like I hope that you can see my love for playing for the US, playing for Davis Cup matches, playing for Olympic matches. And then I hope that you can also understand and see the passion that I have for helping people on the mental health side, and just telling my story of how I was able to overcome such a tough part of my life, and then also giving back to the community that I love the most, which is Vero Beach. And I know I root for Minnesota sports, and I live in Los Angeles, and I spend a lot of time in Tampa, but Vero Beach is my home away from home, and it will always be. I'm sure my parents will be there till the day they die, and it's home for us. And so it's truly very special for you guys to come and take over Riverside Park like that, for us to go back and sort of feel like it was, and have the sort of the memories flood back, and just kind of remember all the things that I did there, not even including tennis, right? Like there were so many times where we had little baseball games or little football games, or I've spilled plenty of blood there and broke a bone in my foot there because I jumped the net trying to impress a girl, or there were all kinds of memories that we have from that place. So it's home, and I'm lucky that my parents still live there, that they put in the time that they do for the foundation, and because if they didn't, it still wouldn't be going at this point. And so they're there to thank for that. And yeah, thank you for having us.
Well, you will always be Florida to us. So no matter where you go, this is always your home. USTA Florida is so happy that you're an incredible human being. And we always say the only thing that it takes to be involved in Florida tennis is a heart for service. Our past president, Dana Andrews, says that a lot. You clearly have that. We're so grateful to you and to Tom. And even though I don't think I've met Sally yet, but I'm hoping to meet Miss Sally here in the near future, Tom, that we're just grateful to have you in Vero Beach. And like I said, maybe when my days at USTA Florida are done, you still have a volunteer in Vero Beach for the Mardy Fish Foundation and anything you need, because you're just good human beings. And
thank you.
We're going to take you up on that. We're going to take you up on that. We're going to put you to work.
Anytime. People will tell you I'm kind of a workaholic. So that's another podcast on a different day. But
thank you very much. Yeah, so thank you for having us.
It's been my pleasure. Really appreciate the time that you both have taken today. Hopefully everybody will watch this podcast and take something inspiring out of it. And again, just look forward to seeing you all again soon.
All right. Thank you, Laura. See you.
See you at Riverside.